evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to What's Up Caribbean. Tonight, half of the show will be in English. We have a superstar lawyer as a guest, and you're going to learn a lot of interesting stuff. So, mesdames et messieurs, aswaya, yon pi gros avocat immigration aux États-Unis, qui c'est monsieur Ira Kurzban. C'est invité nous que lié, il était rencontré avec collègue moi, Kelly Woodson, pour lui expliquer situation immigration dans le pays États-Unis kounye. Alors, tout de suite après lui-même, nous pral gagner tout un avocat immigration haïtien fois ça, qui c'est monsieur Frandley Julien, qui lui-même tout pral ba nous opinion sur Jean-Louis Bagayo actuellement dans Sud Floride là, pour tout haïtien immigrant, tout le monde qui a un TPS avec l'autre forme de visa temporaire aux États-Unis. Alors voilà, son émission très importante, installez-nous confortablement, m'a retourner tout de suite. Our guest tonight is a celebrity lawyer, Mr. Ira J. Kurzban, who is an American civil rights and immigration lawyer. He received widespread media coverage during the 1980s for his representation of Haitian immigrants in Miami, and he never stopped fighting for Haitian immigrants, among other immigrants from various Latin American countries. Attorney Kurzban received many awards by prestigious institutions in the US, and his book, Kurzban's Immigration's Law Sourcebook, is the most popular immigration book in the States and a reference for all immigration lawyers. We have the privilege to welcome Attorney Kurzban on What's Up Caribbean tonight. My colleague Kelly Woodson sat down with him so we can get a clearer picture of the immigration policies today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me here. I am Kelly Woodson. Today, we're having a conversation about why our government is so important to pay attention to these days, because it is under attack. We have to know topics like education, immigration, human rights are under attack, and you have the power to educate yourself. And better yet, to have Mr. Ira Kurzban here today with us, an attorney and advocate for those, an adjunct professor as well at the University of Miami School of Law. Mr. Kurzban, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, of course. Now, you've been very busy.
Very busy.
Very, very busy with a lot of different things that are happening in our community today. But we first want our viewers to know a little bit about you. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey in law?
Wow. As
much as you'd like.
I graduated from the University of California at Berkeley. I was a graduate student. I was not a lawyer, and never wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to teach. And because of events and the politics of what was going on, just like today, I decided to go to law school. So I did a dual PhD law program.
Oh my gosh, that sounds rigorous.
After I graduated, I came to Florida to work as a civil rights lawyer, to work for the National Emergency Civil Liberties Committee, and did a lot of work during the 1980 riots that were here, did a lot of work involving Native American cases and didn't do any immigration until the very end of the 1970s, when I was asked by the National Council of Churches to represent Haitians. And I didn't know anything about immigration, but I knew there was something wrong about the way they were treated in comparison to other groups. So that kind of got me started on my career. And I worked for many years with Father Gerard Jean-Just, who I wish we had today, to mobilize people to get out on the street, because I think the only way that we're going to address what is the policy now and what is coming is mass demonstrations.
And I love how you mentioned that you didn't know too much about immigration, you didn't know too much about these communities, but you knew for a fact that something was wrong and something had to be done, right?
Right, and in fact, there wasn't much of a community. I mean, I've said this many times, if it wasn't for Father Gerard Jean-Just and the Haitian Refugee Center, there wouldn't be a Haitian community here. Because at that time, like now, the community basically wanted Haitians out of Miami. And the government at that time was telling them, we're going to do it. We're going to deport Haitians. They had a Haitian program, actually, designed to deport Haitians. And we sued, and the combination of doing both legal work, which is only one part of the process, and doing political work, which is a more important part of the process, resulted in people going out on the streets every day here in Miami so that the community can understand who the Haitian community really is. Who are these people? Especially today when we have so much misinformation, where you have a president and a governor talking about the worst of the worst, when it turns out that most of the people who are in the detention, I won't even call it a detention center, the prison in the Everglades,
right.
Most of those people are your friends, your neighbors, people who have been working here, have no criminal record whatsoever. So when they use terms like worst of the worst, people need to see the Haitian community out in the streets to understand that these are your friends and your neighbors. These are people who contribute to your community. They're people who pay taxes. And it's not only Haitians, obviously, it's also Venezuelans now, Nicaraguans, Cubans. And, you know, my hope is, and my vision is that all of those groups, we're talking about 1.7 million people who are now all of a sudden illegal because Trump took away their legal status. Not because they're criminals, not because they did anything wrong, they just took away their status. So that group of people should be out on the street demonstrating to let people know, even if we had a small fraction of the 1.7 million, you know, if we had 10,000 people, 20,000, 30,000 people, I know people are scared, I know people are afraid, but they were in 1979. It was the same thing. And due to Father Gerard Jean-Just and the Haitian Refugee Center and the Haitian community who were organizers at that time, people came out and they demonstrated.
Now, there's one thing that you mentioned that I think a lot of viewers are not aware of. I know this, but I want to make sure our viewers know this. You said that they're not criminals. And I think that's the problem of the rhetoric and the dialogue that we're having today, that people are thinking that if you are undocumented or you're within TPS, whatever it may be, that you are considered to be a criminal. So if you are undocumented, can you talk about the difference between criminal and a civil process within that?
Sure. I mean, the big lie here is, which was the big lie perpetrated by this administration, is that everybody here are criminal. You know, that the people here who are here are committing crimes all the time. They always go back to the same 3 or 4 or 5 examples. The reality, of course, is that immigrant communities, including the Haitian community, has a far, far lower rate of crime than the American communities here. Right. And it's, you know, that's always been the fact statistically. And it's not just Haitians, it's every immigrant community.
Correct.
So we start out with a premise of they're saying we're going to get rid of all these criminals. The truth is, there aren't very, very many criminals. There's a very small group of any population, especially if we're talking about 10 million people, as Trump says. How many people are criminals? Less than 1%
Correct.
Of those people. So who are the rest of the people? And that's really the issue. The rest of the people are people who have come into the United States. They may have stayed beyond the time they were given. They are not criminal. It's not against the law. It's not against the criminal law to do that. It's a civil violation for which somebody can be deported. What they're trying to do is blur the distinction between people who violate civil matters and criminals. It's the same thing with coming across the border. Yes, it is true that there's a small criminal penalty that's really never been imposed until this administration, but those aren't the kinds of people they describe as criminals. Most Americans don't understand that immigration is a civil matter.
Yes.
It's not criminal. Imagine if you had a debt and you were thrown in the Everglades prison that they have now. That's the equivalent
big chunk of America would be offended.
In other words, I didn't pay my credit card bill. I'm a criminal, and they put you in the Everglades prison. That's what they're really saying about immigrants. They're trying to blur the distinction between what's civil and what's criminal. In terms of people who commit really serious crimes, very, very small number, probably less than 1 or 2% who commit crimes who have immigration backgrounds. And even many of those people have been immigrants for many years, and then they commit a crime. If it's a violent crime, they're subject to deportation, and they probably should be deported in many circumstances, but the judges and the government is supposed to weigh the equity
of it
to determine whether is this a really bad person. He's got 4 American citizen children. He made a mistake. He paid his time for the crime. Should we actually be deporting that person? But what they're doing is they're blurring the whole distinction. They're saying there's no difference between somebody who commits murder, who's illegally in the United States, and somebody who's been here 40 years paying taxes. Just yesterday, I had a person who came in to my office who's been in the United States for 40 years. He's paid taxes every single year he's worked in the United States. Every single year. He's been a productive member of the community. He's subject to deportation. Why? Because he overstayed. But that's a civil matter.
That's a civil matter.
It's not a criminal matter.
And thank you for that explanation, because I feel as though this is like the argument that I hear all the time. I get so frustrated about, because we have to understand that immigration, especially, it's all about the law. It's all about, like you said, politics is in there, but you have to educate yourself and know what you're saying. And it's so wonderful, refreshing to hear you talk about it as an attorney, this fact. Let's talk a little bit about the recent case that you had the opportunity to be a part of. It was 9 Haitians, a labor union, your law firm, other law firms, going up against the Trump administration because of this TPS status, right? Focusing on
Congress in 1990 passed, as part of a more comprehensive immigration law, something called temporary protected status. It's not asylum.
Okay.
It doesn't lead to permanent residency in the United States, although if you have TPS, as we call it, and you say marry an American citizen, you can become a resident independently. But temporary protected status means there are conditions in your country, economic conditions, political conditions, environmental conditions that result in that we do not want to send someone back. For example, the clearest example was in Montserrat, where there was a volcano. 1,000 people from Montserrat were in the United States at the time. We said we're not going to send those people back. But then there are earthquakes, as we had in Haiti in 2010. And then we had hurricanes that were even more destructive several years after that. And then we had political upheaval. So what the government is supposed to do is look at the political conditions in that country, and every 18 months or 12 or 6 months, make a decision as to whether or not they're going to extend that protection for those people so that we don't send them back. And so what we have is, in this kind of situation, Haiti is, to me, the classic example of TPS. Why?
Correct.
Because they have all the conditions.
Correct.
They have the environmental conditions, right? We had the earthquakes, the hurricanes. They have the medical conditions. We've had cholera in Haiti, a cholera epidemic. We've had the political conditions. A president was assassinated in Haiti. Other presidents, there were coups. There's been a lot of political instability in Haiti for a number of years. And then we have economic conditions. The majority of people in Haiti are food insecure right now. So what does that mean? It means they don't have enough food every day of their lives. And so the conditions are not great in Haiti. And what we do is we reevaluate them as a humane country. That's what we're supposed to do every 18 months and see, should we extend it again or should we end it? Now, some countries have been ended. After with Montserrat, for example, when the volcano subsided and there were no other problems, we ended TPS. But now what this administration is doing is really inhumane. And I'll give you one example, not even Haiti, Afghanistan. What does the government say as to why we're ending TPS in Afghanistan? Because tourism has increased in Afghanistan. I mean, it's hard to believe a government would be that cruel, given the conditions in Afghanistan, to point to tourism.
Yes.
An inhumane joke to talk about how tourism has increased because there are more Chinese people now going to Afghanistan. I mean, it's
like they're
it's
finding something. It's like
right.
they're trying to find
in a way,
something.
it's kind of sticking the knife
Yes,
in. You
yes.
know what I mean? And this is what they're doing in country after country. They did the same thing with Honduras and Nicaragua. They said for Nicaragua, we're taking away TPS because Nicaragua is now a worldwide destination for tourism. Can you believe that? I mean,
I can believe it, unfortunately, because of the way this government is, but it's the disappointment that shines into that. Right.
So in Haiti, the Trump administration comes in. Haitians were given until February 3rd, 2026 to remain here.
Correct.
Before the Biden administration left, they extended TPS for 18 months until February 3rd, 2026.
Correct.
And Kristi Noem comes in, who knows nothing about immigration, still probably knows nothing about immigration. She obviously doesn't know much about habeas corpus, and comes into the office and says, I have the inherent authority to cut back, the 18 months to 12 months. The statutes are very clear. You can't do that. It's illegal to do that.
Kelly Woodson sitting here with Mr. Ira Kurzban, talking about what is going on when it comes to immigration in our country and why we need to educate ourselves. Attorney Kurzban won a case against the Trump administration when it came to this extension of TPS, and why we have to pay attention to the law and not just bring our own feelings into this, right, and pay attention to that. So congratulations again on that, because you are saving so many people in the community, especially the Haitian community.
When you have a president who talks about Haitians eating cats and dogs and says on day one, I'm going to take away TPS, when he doesn't have the authority to do it. It's only the Secretary of Homeland Security who has the authority. So what does that tell you? It tells you that this is all prearranged. It's all a pretext just to get rid of Haitians. And I have to say, Trump has some bizarre idea of Haitians and the Haitian community, because he did the same thing the first time around when he, was president, and not only took away TPS, he took away H-2A visas, H-2B visas from Haitians. He's really kind of sticking it to the Haitian community.
And in this case, you had quoted, you said, the actions challenged in this complaint represent a depth of cruelty typical of authoritarian and fascist governments, but inconsistent with our values and history as a welcoming nation. Now, where can we find a common ground in this issue when it comes to immigration. Because a lot of people, when they talk about immigration, they always bring up the Obama administration. They always say, well, Obama deported everybody and nobody's upset with him. Now Trump is deporting people. Where is this common denominator to understand that there's cruelty, that there's the law, there's different administrations? How can we approach that as people?
Sure, and immigration is a very, very complicated issue, as we're learning, right? I mean, in this administration, they want to go after everybody for everything, and now all of a sudden people are saying, hey, we don't have anyone to do our agricultural work, we don't have anyone to do the service work, we don't have first responders, we don't have people to take care of elderly people. So it's not so easy to try and strike a balance. And under Obama, it is true that they deported more people than any other president in recent history, but it's also true that they did it in a way that was consistent with the idea that you go after people who are criminals or national security threats. You don't go after your neighbor to prove to people that you can deport more people than anyone else, which is really what we have going on now. I do want to say that the law only goes so far. I think people have often historically relied on these legal cases to keep them here and so forth.
Right.
But I think people now have to take responsibility for themselves. They have to demonstrate peacefully, having mass demonstrations to let the people of America know what's going on. Because most people here are these vague ideas that are people coming across the border, for example. So let me talk about the border for 1 second.
Okay.
The border of the United States has been closed since July of 2024. When Biden closed the border in July of 2024. So we're talking about the border's been closed for a year. So why do they keep saying border, border, border? Because they know it resonates with American people, afraid that people are coming over. But the border's been closed, and I'll give you numbers. The number of Haitians who came across the border in December of 2024, before Trump came in, was 38. The number of Haitians who came across the border in January was 19. The number of Haitians who came across the border in February who were apprehended was 9. The border's been closed. The Trump people know that, and the Republicans know that, and Johnson and the Congress know that. But why are they doing this? They want that money.
Yes.
They wanted that $130 billion. And think about what $130 billion could do in America. We could have a Head Start program for every child in America. We could have good public schools in America. We could have health care for Americans. What are we doing with that $130 billion? We're going to build prisons. It's going to start a new, like the military-industrial complex. We're going to have an immigration-industrial complex where there's so much money being given out to so many prisons and so many states to try and lock this in.
I want to remind you that our guest tonight is attorney Ira Kurzban. Kelly Woodson met with him about the current immigration policies in place in the U.S.
They're going to hire 10,000 immigration officers. And who do you think those officers are going to be? They're not going to go through the civil service because they've already decided the civil service isn't necessary, and they fired just this week 16 more judges, immigration judges. They've now fired 108 immigration judges. So they don't care about the civil service. So who are they going to hire? The Proud Boys, the 3%ers, the people who were really, horrible neo-Nazis, white supremacists, to be our immigration ICE officers. And how are you going to know? Because they're all going to have masks on.
Of course, they're not going to be recognizable.
And that's why they started this whole idea of having masks, which is, first of all, counterproductive to safety. We live in a state, for example, think about this. We live in a state where it's stand your ground. If I see 2 ICE officers coming at me and I don't know they're ICE officers and maybe they're terrorists, I have a right to shoot them. Because we have stand your ground in Florida. If I feel that I'm being really threatened personally, and I don't know who these people are because they're not dressed in uniforms, they have hoods on, and then showing no identification and just grabbing people, I'm not going to assume it's an ICE officer. Why should I?
So you discussed a lot about obviously going out to protests, going out, making sure to stand up for oneself. But what happens if, for example, someone knocks on your door and it is ICE, they get you, you're done. You go out for a protest, it is ICE, they get you, you're done. What are the things that people need to know to be proactive in regards to this process?
All you need to do is look at what's happened in Los Angeles, which is the government has tried to go after people in mass. A judge has now entered an order saying that's racial profiling. You can't go after people because they're Hispanic. You can't go after people because of the color of their skin. If you do that, it's against the law, clearly. So the question is, if you're asking me, can they do things that are illegal? Of course they can, and they have. There's no question about it. But what are they supposed to do, and what can you say? Do you have a warrant for my arrest? Am I named on some document? You can't just come here and ask me for my papers. You have to have probable cause, a reasonable basis to stop me. Now, how far do you go? People do have to be careful.
Because it is hard, especially.
If you try and obstruct them or fight them, they can charge you criminally, obviously. So it's not a question of you, kind of physically trying to stop something, or if you see somebody else physically, you record it. You get people to record everything so they know what's going on. That's what happened in Los Angeles, and they've now used that in a court case to say this is all racial profiling. Are they going to do it? Are they going to try and scare people? The answer is, of course they are. People have to have courage. I mean, people have to stand up. They're not, and they have to say, if I have to be arrested to protect everybody else, then that will be it. But they can't just take somebody in legally unless they have a basis to do it, a warrant of arrest or probable cause to do it. And let me tell you, demonstrating out on the street and asserting a First Amendment right is not probable cause to arrest somebody.
Right.
And I think that's what needs to be done.
And I think that's, I love that you mentioned that, because I think that's the biggest discussion, with this administration. Well, if you're going out to protest, if you're fighting, that's illegal. It's just not. It's just black and white. It's not.
You can stand up, assert your rights, okay? But you do have to be careful about, if they want to take you into custody, if you start to fight, then they can charge you with other things. So I think the simple answer to the question is know your rights. Know that they can't just take you into custody because you're demonstrating, or take you into custody because you look Haitian or you look Hispanic or something. That the law is very clear on that's illegal. So if they do, then you have a basis to get out and do what you need to do and fight the case. Oh, and one other thing.
Please do.
There's something called the Federal Tort Claims Act.
Okay.
You can sue them. In other words, if they arrest you because you're Haitian, and then they're going to eventually have to release you because you're a resident or a citizen or here legally, you have the right to sue the federal government for that. It's called the Federal Tort Claims Act. We are going to be starting a project nationally to do that, because obviously they're taking people into custody illegally.
When you say that they are able to sue them, that obviously requires a legal team, an attorney, and whatnot. And so, for those who might not be able to afford that, for those who
Oh,
as
there are
might as
going to
well,
be a lot of
lots of pro
people
bono.
gonna be involved in doing it. Yeah,
That's
they
good
don't
for our
have to-
viewers to know, because I think some people, they're always so scared maybe to do this because they feel I can't pay my legal fees, or what if the attorney doesn't represent me correctly? So it's good to know that we have people that will do that. Now, I really want to ask you, what do you feel is next? Because I know that you had predicted a lot of things within the Trump administration prior, and many of those things came to light. But what do you feel is going to happen next?
Well, I don't think we're in for a very good ride with respect to this administration. I think people are going to have to stand up and assert their rights in order to slow down the process of what they want to do. I think ultimately it's going to depend on the Supreme Court. If the majority of the Supreme Court is going to let Trump do what he's doing, right now they have stayed orders against him on birthright citizenship, as you know, on issues concerning the Department of Education, on firing people and so forth. But these are all temporary. They haven't yet gotten to the actual, what we call, merits of those cases. When they do, we'll see what the court does. Of course, if the court rolls over, we have a serious, constitutional crisis that can only be avoided by people getting out and asserting their rights themselves. So, do I think things are going to get worse? Yes, I think they're going to get worse. I think, but unless there's a pushback, and that is the exception. If there is a pushback, if people do go out and demonstrate, and people do go to their members of Congress and make a lot of noise about these things, there's an ability to push back. But clearly, the money that they have now gotten, $130 billion, people should start demanding what they're going to do with that money. They should be building detention centers. And I use that word euphemistically because they're really prisons. They're not detention centers. Remember, going back to what we said at the beginning, these people are civil. This is a civil matter.
Correct.
They haven't committed a crime. They're not in the United States and being detained because of a crime. They're being detained because of a civil immigration statute. So they have to assert their rights. And people can't be afraid. I mean, the bottom line on all this is fear. You're absolutely right. And if people have to overcome their fear. So I think we're going to see in the next 6 months, they're going to start building these things. But remember, this whole process, this whole project that Trump wants to do requires years, not months, not days, and not 1 year. It's going to take them a very long time to do what they want to do. And in that interim, we have an ability to fight it.
And I appreciate you mentioning that, because I think a lot of his supporters or his team or whoever it may be have a feeling that a lot of this is going to happen overnight, and they get even more frustrated and more wound up and say, well, we got to get him out now. And it's like, at the end of the day, this is not how the process works. And I really, really want to just ask you, what is your final message to those who are experiencing all of this, for those who are nervous that, because we know people in our communities that they might be married to someone, like you said, that they're going to go through this situation and they can't sleep at night, right? You left a message to the Trump administration by defeating them in regards to this. But what is your final message?
I will give people a positive message, because I
yes,
believe
please.
time is really on our side.
Yes.
And it's on our side because if you look at the polls, even now, for the first time after many, many, many months, you're seeing that the American people support immigration. Because now it's no longer the criminals. They're starting to catch on to what's happening. They understand that the people they're picking up are my friends, my neighbors, the guy down the street who works hard and does his job. That's going to happen more and more. The more and more that happens, people are going to turn on Trump. And they've turned on him already, even on immigration. So I think we need to understand this is a long-term project, and the long-term project requires people to get up, speak out, and do what they need to do, because time is on our side. Most Americans don't support what's going on. They did support closing the border, and they use the border, but that's all gone now. You know, there's no longer a border crisis, so they can't keep talking about it. If they talk about it, people realize it's ridiculous. The American people are not stupid, and they've been treating them as if they're stupid. And what's happening now is you're seeing for the first time a movement toward immigration, because we need people.
We do. We do. And I think it's it's a little bit interesting that you say that most people don't even support this, but it's almost like, well, how did he win then? You know, like, how did he make it to this point where he is trying to go above the executive order to do what he's doing?
He won by 300,000 votes. If 300,000 votes were different in this election, he would not have won. So when they talk about a mandate, see, this is the genius, I think, of the Trump people. They look at it as if it's inevitable. They try to project everything as inevitable. But the reality is the American people are a lot smarter than that.
Yes, yes. You heard it here. You're extremely smart. You know your rights. You know what you have to do. Do not be scared. We are here to educate all of you. Ira Kurzban, thank you so much for being here with us.
It's a pleasure.
And thank you all for tuning into this episode.
Thank you, Attorney Kurzban, for explaining all these facts to us tonight. And thank you, Kelly Woodson, for meeting with him. Our next guest is Frandley Denis Julien.
Je salue tous les téléspectateurs, téléspectatrices et Island TV. Nous dans une situation sans précédent et côté que vous senti que un sentiment anti-immigrant qui très poussé et sous bouche ou te senti que yo t'a fait enforcement loi sur immigration, mais là on a l'impression que c'est pas loi sur immigration qui principal facteur là c'est sentiment anti-immigrant, sentiment tout ça qui pas blanc. Ouais, anti tout ça qui pas blanc et puis immigration vient en second pour servir sentiment ça.
Mais qu'on y a là, si n'a parlé de communauté pas nous parlons de bail concret. Yon moun qui gen TPS qu'on y a, li pratiquement là pour juste 3 février. Quelle autre alternative yon moun qui gen TPS?
Bon, qui ça arrive c'est que TPS là, li son bagay et collectif, donc li couvrir un paquet de monde dans la communauté mais bien souvent le solution collective ça yo sorti, yo disparaît et c'est pas tout le temps ou rien une solution collective qui remplace elle. Elle dit que des fois le salut est personnel comme on dit.
Sans les parler du cas par cas qu'on y a.
Exactement. Ça veut dire que grand pile monde qui c'est le cas par cas li pralier pour yo. Par exemple, gen monde qui marié là qui peut faire résidence yo, gen monde qui te gen ti monde yo qui fait gen 21 ans, gen plusieurs cas comme ça là et monde ça yo pas faire résidence yo, gen monde c'est année prochaine ti monde y a gen 21 ans yo pas attendre pour faire résidence yo non plus, gen monde qui était là depuis 2010 qui dit que l'homme te vini moins te gen un cas pour asile, pas jamais faire parce que m'te toujours gen TPS et jodi a monde ça va pas appliquer pour asile tout. Et gen moun c'est leur arrivé devant juge que pas gen solution tant que cancellation of removal tout temps pourquoi TPS la fini pour yo voyer devant juge yo pas gen solution et maintenant ça c'est le cas par cas. En plus du cas par cas qu'on y a ou gagner tout des solutions collectives possibles et principal là c'est ça le Dignity Act là. Qui ça Dignity Act là c'est un projet de loi que un groupe de parlementaires et républicains et démocrates a poussé. Ils ont dit que si il réussit, qui ça la peine pour nous? Premièrement, tout le monde qui était aux États-Unis et à partir de 2021, la bail 7 ans de statut. Évidemment, me dit 2021, jeudi à mais nous connaissons comment la législation marche, c'est pas qui très dynamique, il a changé date là a changé demain matin, il a dit 2023 et ou bien 2024, ça va dépendre. Et il dit que a bail un statut de 7 ans et pendant 7 ans ça mon nan ka travail, mon nan c'est comme t'as dit un TPS de longue durée. Maintenant, s'il passe tout, la bail tout dreamer, tout petit monde qui est rentré ici avant yo gen 18 ans là-bas yon résidence et conditionnelle de 10 ans et puis après il y a ba résidence permanente là. L'autre bail que li fait tout, li renforcer et frontière là pour que problème immigration pas pose encore pour que monde pas ka passer dans frontière là et côté que a mettre technologie du genre barrière, drone, toutes sortes de barrières comme ça. Ensuite, li a créé un système côté que mon capitaine résidence longtemps et aussi au pays l'argent, yo capable passer en vent. Ensuite, la créé un programme tout côté que si yon moun gen yon mariage, yon enterrement, etc. ou besoin venir ici, yo bon yon visa de 90 jours pour que ou venez. Et donc, Dignity Act là, et c'est pas une solution parfaite, mais je pense que il a résoudre plus de problème. Nous, c'est vous ça moi-même m'endosser li. Et nous, t'as besoin d'un équipe bon que Dignity Act là, mais lui-même, li de loin mieux que TPS. Et en termes de solutions collectives, je pense que c'est la noyée pour le moment.
Imagine Art Media Productions, with nearly 20 years of experience, provides clients with a variety of marketing and production services. Imagine Art can help promote your business on any local or global media platform. We handle all aspects of your campaign, from creative content production to campaign strategies. We are the one-stop shop that you need. Visit our website or call us.
I'm Cindy. I'm studying to become an English teacher, and I love Island TV. Why? Because we are the Caribbean. We are Island TV. We need to reveal our fundamental contributions in America. We need Island TV to reveal our different beautiful Caribbean cultures for the world to respect and understand us better. Grow your business while supporting the only Caribbean television station in Florida. Advertise with Island TV.
Sa Dignity Act là, c'est un projet de loi que un groupe de parlementaires et républicains et démocrates a poussé.
C'est une très bonne nouvelle, d'après moi. Est-ce que c'est n'importe qui monde qui était là à partir de date où tu dis ou bien c'est monde illégal ou bien monde qui était sous situation qui groupe de monde?
Alors Jean mettre là, c'est pas pour communauté haïtienne seulement, c'est pour tout monde qui était là. Donc tout le monde qui peut avoir un document, qui peut avoir au moins une résidence, yo tout tap qualifié pour lui et yon n'a pas yo mettre là-dedans tout si mon n'a pas fait crime majeur. Ouais, ça me dit, c'est-à-dire que si c'est anti campé ou tap travail ou tap conduit sans licence, à ce moment-là, il n'y a pas de problème avec ça. Mais si son bail qui est beaucoup plus grave, tant que DUI avec et blessure, là, son autre bail n'a pas parlé. Vous comprenez? Donc, pour me répondre à une question de manière plus claire, c'est statut que mon a gagné pas important pour eux. C'est est-ce que tu es là dans date là, et si tu es là dans date là, ou pas gain résidence, à ce moment-là, ou capable de bénéficier de Dignity Act là, s'il passe. Okay. Ouais, mais étant donné que c'est première initiative, à mon sens, que dans la dernière année, ça que moi qui gagne un groupe large de parlementaires des deux partis, je pense que chance de réussite là beaucoup plus haut que l'autre initiative de ce genre que nous connaissons.
Ouais. Et est-ce que vous remarquez ça, et bon, d'après les consultations que nous faisons, est-ce que vous remarquez que USCIS ralentit, il pas travaille vite sur le dossier encore? Parce que moi, il y a des dossiers qui vraiment traînent.
Ça dépend. Et par exemple, moun qui rentre dans Biden yo te campé travail sur yo, c'est un juge, ça a environ 2 mois, qui ordonné USCIS pour recommencer travail sur yo. Donc, moun sa a toujours trouvé que l'application que te fait prend trop de temps. Et cependant, moun qui appliqué pour résidence ces derniers temps ou bien citoyenneté, yo ka wè que ba yo aller très vite. Ouais, parce que majorité résidence nous fait là, c'est entre 2 et 4 mois. Ouais, donc résidence yo aller très vite. Application citoyenneté qui fait qu'on y a aller très vite tout. Mais c'est vrai que il y a des bails qui aller moins vite mais ça y en a bails qui aller vite, c'est question asile par exemple. Asile, qu'on y a là, on font application pour asile, dans 3-4 mois, au relais. Maintenant, c'est pas tout le monde qui veut relais tout de suite. Vous comprenez? Mais font
Donc, on est réalité.
Exactement, qui est organisé, on va relais, mais c'est la réalité.
Ok, mais gagnons l'autre cas de figure. Quand des gens qui employés qui ont travaillé, par exemple, des gens qui ont TPS depuis près de 14-15 ans pratiquement, depuis le tremblement de terre là. Moun ça employeur il est capable de filer pour résidence.
Ça dépend de plusieurs facteurs. Et pour qui ça oui. Premier facteur c'est dans qui statut mon est. Et pour qu'un employeur capable de faire résidence pour faut you in status. OK? Bon exemple bien simple. Il y a un monde qui est rentré ici le 1er janvier 2010, li appliqué pour TPS immédiatement, il a le TPS dans le mois de février, permis de séjour visa li a toujours dispo, toujours valide. Le monde ça aujourd'hui à la s'il était toujours appliqué pour TPS. Attends, il y a un employeur capable d'appliquer pour lui. Cependant, si mon ça par exemple, il était raté une application TPS, il pas fait la l'heure. Côté que TPS on leur t'est fini pour le 30 mai et puis lui même il pas de temps fait application renouvellement même 30 mai ou bien avant 30 mai à ce moment ça il y a un problème. Ouais, il vient faire le 15 juin, TPS était fini 30 mai et puis il vient faire application TPS 15 juin, il vient 15 jours côté il pas in status, donc mon ça a un problème. Même gens yon monde qui rentré dans Biden par exemple. Et Trump campé Biden et programme Biden là et si mon employeur pas de fait ça le faire avant que Trump te campé programme Biden là moi ça vient un problème tout parce que
mais si mon était sous TPS ça pas de illégal
c'est était sur TPS oui cependant en pile la solution employeur yo prend temps qu'on y a et donc en pile là yo pas dépendre de est-ce que TPS là toujours leur paré pour faire ajustement de statut.
Merci à tout le monde qui était branché à Soya pour émission importante ça au sujet de immigration dans le moment aux États-Unis. Prochain rendez-vous nous fixé à semaine prochaine, même l'heure. Bonsoir.